Hey everybody, welcome back to Winnemac Attack Hockey. I am Dom, joined by Jake and Matt, and today we are going to argue about the recent Nikita Kucherov injury and whether or not Tampa needs him to complete their Stanley Cup repeat. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, and let's get to it. All right, everybody, so we had an incident go down the other night in Game 4 between the Tampa Bay Lightning and Florida Panthers regarding Nikita Kucherov, who suffered an injury. Thankfully, was not anything serious as he is back for Game 5, ready to go. But Anthony Duclair came up, slashed him in the back of the knee, and both sides are upset about it. So we're going to try to figure this out and talk about whether Kucherov is needed for Tampa to repeat the Stanley Cup as champions. Jake, what are your initial thoughts?
If you're Nikita Kucherov and the Tampa Bay Lightning, you deserve to have Kucherov go down here. This short NHL season, Tampa looks at their roster and they say, hey, we're looking pretty good. Kucherov, just, it's Florida. Hit a beach someplace, take 56 games off. We're just going to put your money on the long-term injured reserve. No biggie. And so they do that. I think they did the same thing with Point. And so they get to make some acquisitions such as Savard, to add to their defense. Meanwhile, there's $17 million over the salary cap. That's two star players that other teams don't get to have going into the playoffs. And Tampa abused that exploit of the long-term injured reserve, and I think that it would have been fitting if they lost Kucherov this early into the playoffs.
I see. Matt, what are your thoughts for Kucherov? Do you think Tampa's deep enough to do it without him?
I do. I do think they have an extremely deep team, and I think they have a lot of really good parts of that team. Players like Braden Point, players like their goalie Vasilevsky and Hedman and Chernak, and a lot of players, Yanni Gord. Great players and great depth behind that team. I think they'll be able to bounce back, and they've played pretty well so far in the playoffs to show that they can have a lot of depth and they can beat some pretty good teams, especially one in Florida. So, and another thing is that maybe what they're doing is a little shady with how they're dealing with the situation of keeping him out, even though they have so much over the cap. But I think that's more or less on the NHL for letting them do this. And if the NHL is going to create a loophole, I think what's the problem with them trying to exploit it?
Interesting. All right, so you guys are on opposing sides here. Jake, what do you think?
So I do disagree that I think it's Tampa's fault for abusing it. It's just a sportsmanship issue. But I don't disagree so much with how important Kucherov is. He is everything to that playoff run for Tampa. You can look at that in terms of his stats for last year's Stanley Cup run. He had 7 goals and 27 assists, 34 points in 25 games, well over a point per game, and they went on to win the Cup that year. The year before that was that great regular season. He has 41 goals and 128 points, but then in the playoffs, what happens? They get swept by the Columbus Blue Jackets, and what did Kucherov do in that series? 0 goals, 2 assists, that's 2 points in only 3 games. He didn't even play 1 game. Just disappointing postseason for Kucherov, and it showed. That's how important he is to that team.
I'm curious to see how everyone else's stat line measured up for that Columbus series. That's interesting. I like your point there. But you have to think, too, that in the regular season that Tampa has been super, super good and electric, no pun intended, without him. Matt, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it really comes down to, they're a team that is built so well. Stevie Yzerman, before he left to go to Detroit, built a great team with a lot of depth and built players that are good offensively as well as defensively. And I think that's something that's been really important for them. Even though he's made of glass, Steven Stamkos has been a really good player for them. Whenever he's on the ice, he makes a lot of plays, and he's pretty good defensively as well. He's also pretty good in the faceoff dot. Then you have players like Braden Point, who really, when he started off his career, was more of a goal scorer, more of a guy on the second and third line. who was creating offense for them. But as seasons have gone by, he's gotten in a bigger role. And I think players like that, young players like that, have really stepped up, especially in situations like this when Kucherov or when Stamkos has been out. It's really added to the depth of this team. And I think you look at a player like Chernak, who's really come out of nowhere, is not just a big hitter, but can contribute offensively. I think Hedman has always been there as a perennial Norris candidate. He's been one of the best defensemen in the league, arguably the best defenseman in the league. And you have possibly the best goaltender in the league as well, Vasilevsky. And I think you have these really good players who create this great situation for them. And I think it's kind of a little backhand in a little way to just say that losing a player like Kucherov, who I think is extremely good for them, especially offensively, kind of mitigates what the other players do for this team. And I think that losing him, as it is a big loss in that first line, I think they do have players like Yanni Gourde. I expect him in a situation, if Kucherov is not able to play, to come in and contribute right away for them. And I think players like Blake Coleman can be another great player that can play and get better minutes for them. I think there's a lot of good players on this team that can contribute for them offensively. And I think defensively they're already set, and they should have a pretty good ride through the playoffs, and we'll see how far they can go.
Yeah, for sure. They definitely got a lot of hustle, a lot of grit with them guys you've been talking about, and they've been showing it all season. Jake, do you think that gritty play is going to be enough for them, though, against some really good teams?
Here's the problem. You can be a gritty team when you're deep, and Tampa is a deep team. Because you have to consider, if you're playing gritty, the other team's going to be playing just as gritty against you. And when they have the depth, sure, you can lose one guy or two guys. But if they don't have Kucherov, you already know if somebody gets gritty with Steven Stamkos, he's going to get injured. He's proven it. That's what he does. He's better at getting injured than scoring goals, and he's great at scoring goals. And I just think you have to keep looking at Kucherov's stats. I looked further into it here, and Tampa has made the conference final in 2015-16 and 2017-18, and he was a point per game in both of those seasons. And in 2014-15, they made it to the Stanley Cup final in a losing effort, but he was also a point per game in that year's playoffs. And in 2019-20, again, he was way over a point per game. When Tampa has success in the playoffs, Nikita Kucherov is right there aiding to that success.
Yeah, I like your thoughts there, Jake. Nikita Kucherov is no joke. Obviously, he's one of the best players of the league when he is healthy, and I think that he definitely means a lot to that Tampa team. But also, I think we have to also consider that when he plays well, it's also because his line mates are playing well. And over there in Tampa, they just got a really good team, and I think that's what defines them and sets them apart, is they have a great team and they play as a team. And you can definitely tell. All right, guys, so that's what we have for this video, and we hope that you guys enjoyed it. Drop a comment, a like, and always be sure to hit that subscribe button for more hockey content, street hockey gameplay, and much more. We will see you next time on Winnemac Hockey.